Okay, welcome to Positive Behavior Support Plans at the Illinois Service Resource Center. We're glad you're here today. And when we think about positive behavior support plans, we think of them in terms of this triangle, this response to intervention model that we're all so familiar with. Is there anybody here who's seeing this triangle for about the first time? No, everybody's pretty familiar. Yes, you're seeing this for the very first time. Okay. This is the model that we keep seeing over and over again in recent years, and we look at it from both the academic and the behavioral side. And when you think about the students in your school, approximately 80% of the students are going to be responding to any type of school-wide academic program or behavioral program that you have set up. And those are going to be your universal level interventions. Okay, this is your continuum of support. So classroom-wide systems, school-wide systems, 80% of the students are going to respond. About 15% of the students then are going to need the next level of support. They're going to need targeted level interventions such as something called a check-in, check-out system. Perhaps they're going to need small group instruction. Maybe they're going to need a social skills group. But they're going to need something more. They're going to need something more than that school-wide system that you have in place. Then you're going to have about 5% of your students who are really going to need intensive level supports. Okay? They're going to need a behavior intervention plan, a support plan. They're going to need possibly some sort of wraparound services. Maybe they're going to need assistance from in the community. They're really going to need an extra level of support, intensive level. So 3 to 5% of your students. And those students are when you're going to be collecting data individually, you're going to be implementing the interventions, and those are the ones where you're kind of tearing your hair out. What are we going to do for this student? What supports can we put in place? And this is another way of looking at the same triangle, but this one kind of splits it up. What we've been saying is true academically as well. If you're teaching reading, if you're teaching math, about 80% of your students are going to get the concepts as they're introduced. But then you're going to have students who are going to need some sort of extra support and students who are going to need intensive levels of support for academic instruction. Same thing on the behavioral side. Okay? So this is the model we use. This is also the basis for response to intervention. Okay? And this is what we have been hearing so much about, response to intervention. And what we do is we set up a system at the universal level, academically and behaviorally, for all students. Are they responding to the instruction? If yes, fine. If they're not responding to the instruction, whether it's academic instruction or behavioral instruction, what's the next level of support? If they don't respond to that second level, what's the next level of support? Okay? And that's how, if they respond to the intervention, they get to stay at that level of intervention. Are there any questions on that? Yes?
What if they respond sometimes, but other times they don't?
Then some sort of system needs to be put in place for the times they do not respond. Do you have a specific student in mind?
Right.
Okay. I think that most students would fall into that category. Not most students in the 80% green, but most students in that yellow or red level. They're not 100% of the time going to be behaving inappropriately. So, and what's the universal level system you have in place that's sometimes getting a response?
I'm still in the beginning stages of trying different things.
Okay.
Sometimes something works and then the very next day it might not work.
Okay, so you're talking about a specific reinforcer that sometimes works and sometimes does not. Okay, so then let's get into that further and take a look at the system itself, because the specific reinforcers, yeah, kids get sick of those real quick. So then you're constantly saying, what's the new reinforcer? But the system itself is staying the same. So for instance, I have to earn 10 points to get the reinforcer. That's the system. But if you're saying one day the reinforcer is worth working for and one day it's not, it's the reinforcer that needs to change, but the system is staying the same. Okay, does that make sense? All right. All right. This is just another depiction of how the three elements work together, okay? We're talking about systems when we talk about the universal level, the targeted level, and the intensive level. The practices are when the teachers and other educational staff follow specific practices from the system, and then the data collection, and these three elements work together to create an overall plan, okay? They're going to support the decision making that you make, they're going to support achievement, support student behavior, and support staff behavior, which is always an interesting component, and why we sometimes, we make a joke of it, but sometimes that teacher transplant is what helps the student behavior. All right, so this is just another quick little depiction. This is the teacher, worst class I've ever had, and she's got them all standing in the corner, and we've just overlaid the triangle on top of that, okay? So these kids who got sent there multiple times, you know, you just kind of move up the triangle there. All right, so let's recap this. About 80 to 85% of your students are going to respond to the universal level interventions. What do the universal level interventions look like? You're going to identify 3 to 5 overall expectations for all students, okay? So very often these 3 universal level expectations are be respectful, be responsible, and be safe. Is anybody familiar with other expectations that you've seen? Okay, sometimes it might be ready, be prepared. These are the most common ones we've seen. Then what you do is you develop a matrix of expectations by environment. And that sounds kind of complicated, but think of just a matrix, and you've got your 3 columns: be respectful, be responsible, be safe. And then down the side you identify the environments: the classroom, the hallway, the playground, the cafeteria. And then you say, what does respectful behavior look like in the hallway? What does safe behavior look like on the playground? And you fill in your matrix. And then you've identified your expectations of appropriate behavior in each of these environments. After you do that, you need to develop ways to teach the students these expected behaviors. And we like to use this acronym TEMPR, T-M-P-R. You're going to teach the expected behaviors. You're going to model them, okay, which means you could practice, you could demonstrate. Then you're going to prompt, okay? You're going to prompt the expected behavior. So if you have practiced responsible hall walking behavior before the classroom goes out into the hall, the teacher says, remember when we practiced our respectful hall walking behavior? Let's remember to do that. Okay? And then you have some sort of reinforcement system. Okay? Again, this is at the school-wide level. This same TMPR applies at the individual student level, but thinking of the school-wide level, you've got some sort of reinforcement system in place. Some schools have tickets or little gotcha stickers, something that shows, I caught you being good. Okay? So then maybe the kids can collect these and go to a school store and use their tickets to purchase items. Some schools maybe have a lottery, and if you get one of these tickets, your name goes in, and somebody's name gets picked at the end of the week, and you get lunch with the principal, or whatever the reinforcement system is. This is the school-wide level reinforcement. Okay, these are some of the objections that we often hear when we start talking about this. Okay? A lot of teachers have the feeling, I'm not going to be reinforcing them for something they should be doing anyways. Has anybody ever encountered this with a teacher? I see some heads nodding. Okay. We do. We encounter this. They should know to be quiet when they walk in the hallway. They should know their behavior that's expected of them in the bathroom. And so this is an objection we get from teachers. And our response is, yes, maybe they should know it, but if they don't, let's teach them. Okay? Again, they should already know better. Some teachers feel that it's a bribe. Okay? And the way we break that down is, if they're already engaged in the behavior, and you say, if you stop doing that behavior, I'll give you a cookie. That's a bribe. Okay? Because you're bribing them to stop the behavior. They're already engaged in it. But if you've set up a system ahead of time where they know that through appropriate behavior they can earn that reinforcement, it's a reinforcement. You're not bribing them to stop. So that's the difference. Any questions on that? Okay. Okay, then we take a look at research. Research absolutely supports positive behavior interventions. Okay? Is anyone familiar with John Gottman? He's a psychologist. He's done a lot of work observing married couples. Okay? And he's observed thousands of married couples, and he can look at a 3 to 5 minute videotape of a couple interacting and having a discussion about a topic of importance to them, and he can predict with, I believe it's over 95% accuracy whether or not that couple will get a divorce within 8 years or whatever the time period is. Okay, 3 to 5 minutes, 95% accuracy. And what he looks at is the ratio of positive to negative interactions. Okay? So you could have a couple that's screaming and yelling at each other, and they're having lots and lots of negative interactions. But as long as the number of positive interactions outweighs it and the ratio remains 4 to 1, there's the positive relationship is there. Okay? So how do we carry that over into the classroom? Okay? And how do you remember to say 4 positive things for every negative thing? Any thoughts on that? How would you, if you have a child who's supremely frustrating and you're constantly thinking and observing negative behaviors, how would you find a way to make that ratio 4 to 1? Any thoughts? No? It's challenging. Yes?
Give them a task he or she can do.
Okay. Wonderful.
If they will do it or not.
Okay. So manipulate the environment yourself. Set up a task that you know the child will complete successfully, and there's an opportunity for praise. Absolutely. Okay? So you find something the child can do. Great. Any other suggestions? At one of our previous behavior team trainings, we passed out clickers. So if you weren't here before and your team would like one, just contact us. We'll get one to you. And it's just those the ones that go in your pocket and just a counter. And they can be used in such a variety of ways. And one of the ways would be, you could say to yourself, I want to say positive things to this child today. You could set a goal. I want to say, 4 positive things this hour, or 12 positive things during the day. And keep the clicker in your pocket, and every time you say something nice, you click it. And then at the end of the day, you say, okay, I met my personal goal. I said 9 nice things today. Okay? So that's just one sample of how you could use it. Maybe, oh gosh, we've heard so many different ways. You could keep rubber bands on your wrist, transfer one over. every time you say something nice. You could set a little timer, okay, maybe for 15 minutes. And when it goes off, every 15 minutes, just say something nice to the student, okay? Your shoes are tied. Good job, okay? You're in your seat right now. Okay. Any other suggestions of that nature? Kids who are challenging to compliment? Compliments that can be offered to them? Yes?
Just say good job as much as you can.
Find any way to compliment them. Any concrete skill that you're observing. Yes?
Well, you could say something, like, I like how you're paying attention.
Good.
Are you paying attention to me? Something like that.
Absolutely. I like how you're paying attention to me right now. You find something to reinforce. Okay? When we respond to negative behavior, we are in a reactive mode. Okay? If we're looking for ways to prevent the negative behavior, we're in a proactive mode. Okay? If you're responding to negative behaviors, all you're doing is responding. But you want to think about ways to set up your environment, your interactions, so that you are in a proactive mode. Okay, so what does Confucius say? Okay, Confucius says, to teach, you start where the student is at. Okay, you think about where the student's coming from. Okay, and that's where you start. Okay, I'm a social worker. This is what social workers always say. Begin where the client is. Okay? Think about where the client is at, start there. Whoops. Are we missing a slide? Well, what do teachers say? We've already looked at that. Okay? So these are just some things to keep in mind. Okay? Start where the student is at. All right, now we've made our best effort. We've got universal level interventions in place, but we've still got some students who are not responding to these universal level interventions. So then we have to look at secondary level interventions. This is the yellow portion of that triangle that we looked at. So about 10 to 15% of the students, maybe they're going to need some sort of specific social skills instruction. And this falls right into the program that Illinois School for the Deaf is implementing. Okay? And they're following the model we talked about. They're doing universal level data collection on social skills. They're identifying who's in need of extra support. And then there's a curriculum that's going to be in place. Perhaps the students that need extra support will be in some sort of social skills instruction group. They're going to get that increased level of support. Okay? These students, they're not the ones who are already on a behavior plan. Okay? These are the ones who are kind of in the middle. They're not quite just going along with the program, and they're not quite severe enough that they need an intensive level plan, but they're in that, well, we'd say gray, but we'll say yellow. They're in that yellow area. So you want to come up with increased and regular feedback on their behavior. Okay? So come up with ways to give them increased feedback and extra amounts of teaching, modeling, prompting, and reinforcing. Okay? They just need that extra amount. Okay? Maybe they need something called check-in, check-out. All right? And that's a program where they would, maybe at the end of each class period, have their teacher initial a little box, were they a 1, a 2, or a 3? 1 is they were inappropriate, 2 was okay, and 3 they showed good behavior on that area. Okay? And then at the end of the day they add up their points, and then they can keep track of how many points they earned per day. So they're not on a full-blown behavior plan, they're on this check-in, check-out system. Okay. Then we get to the really fun students. Okay? The ones who are at that intensive level need for interventions, okay? About 3 to 5% of your students are going to be at this level of need. They're going to need a functional behavioral assessment, behavior intervention plan. They may be in need of community level supports, such as wraparound services. Maybe they have some needs at home that are not being met. We need to possibly set up a home school team so that there's regular communication with the home. And then specific to the student is the TMPR, the teaching, modeling, prompting, and reinforcing. So these, in addition to the school-wide expectations, you have identified specific behaviors for this student. You've identified the function of the behavior, because you did your functional behavioral assessment, and then you're going to be teaching a replacement behavior. Okay? This is for students at the intensive level of need. So let's talk about the difference between behavior management and behavior intervention. Okay? Because years and years ago, we didn't call these behavior intervention plans, we called them behavior management plans. Okay? Now, if you think about managing someone's behavior, your goal is to just get rid of that behavior. Okay? I want to control them. I want them to behave in this certain way. Let's find out what this behavior is and get rid of it. Okay? The goal of behavior intervention is to teach them alternate skills. Okay? So, yes, you want the behavior to go away, but if you're recognizing that the behavior is meeting a need for the student, you want to teach them an alternate way to get that need met. Otherwise, what you're going to have is that game at Chuck E. Cheese where the little mole pops up, and then you take the hammer and you hit it on the head, and as soon as you hit it on the head, another one pops up, and then you hit that one on the head, and then another one pops up. And that's what's going to happen with the behaviors. If you've got a child who has a need for attention, and they're, tapping their pencil on the desk, and you say, stop tapping your pencil on the desk. Well, maybe they'll stop that, but then maybe they'll start tapping their foot on the floor. And then you say, stop tapping your foot on the floor, and then maybe they start making little whistling noises. Okay? So you're eliminating each behavior as you go, but you haven't addressed the student's need. And you haven't taught them an appropriate way to meet that need, so these other behaviors just keep popping up. Okay, another question. Intervention or consequence? Okay? I'm going to ask the interpreter to fingerspell the word consequence instead of sign it, and ask each of you to show me how you sign the word consequence. How do you sign it? How do you sign? Let me see how you sign consequence. I'm seeing this. I'm seeing this. This. No sign over here. Okay. We encourage the use of consequence. Okay, consequence, because it means the thing that happened next. If you're signing consequence, you're indicating that the consequence is a punishment. Okay, but if I behave appropriately and you compliment my behavior, that compliment is a consequence of my appropriate behavior. So it's not a punishment in any way. It's the thing that happens next. Okay? So, if you're looking at an intervention, this is, again, you're intervening, you're teaching new skills, you're promoting those positive behaviors, you're teaching, modeling, prompting, and reinforcing, rewarding the appropriate behavior that you're looking for. The consequence is what the individual gets out of it. Okay? So, for example, if the child is constantly trying to escape the task in inappropriate ways, and you teach the student, listen, when you need to get up out of your seat, just ask if you can go and get a glass of water. Okay? You've taught an appropriate way to escape the task, and you say, here's the intervention. Just say, can I get a drink of water? Okay? The student has been able to escape the task. That's the consequence. Okay? Another one. If the student is inappropriately seeking teacher attention and you've set up some sort of system, every time you have appropriate behavior for 10 minutes, you're going to get a sticker. Okay? That's the intervention. The student is not only getting the tangible reinforcer of the sticker, but they know then they're going to be getting teacher attention every 10 minutes. Okay? So you're combining those two together. You have a question on that?
I'm just thinking of it.
I agree. The students at the Phil Rock Center have such intensive levels of need that cognitively you'd be challenged in terms of the 10-minute time period, and so you would definitely have to look at alternate interventions for your population. Absolutely. Okay, so how do we maintain negative behavior? Okay? We see the student is engaging in what we call non-compliance. Okay? We say, I'm going to control that behavior. I'm going to set up a really good punishment to make sure the student does not engage in that behavior. So we put a good amount of time into figuring this out. We apply these interventions, possibly get into power struggles. The needs of the student remain unaddressed, and you end up with either maintaining or increasing the specific challenging behavior that you're looking to diminish. Okay. A lot of times when we are the ones involved specifically with the student, it's so challenging and so frustrating, and we can often feel as if the student is specifically engaging in the behavior just to frustrate us. Okay? It's very, very easy to feel that way. And what you need to do is get yourself out of the picture and not make assumptions about the reason the student is engaging in the behavior. Okay? Excuse me? I'm going to ask you all to think about what is half of 13. Okay? So what would you say is half of 13? 6.5. Okay? What else is half of 13? Okay? We're kind of going on an assumption here. We're going on an assumption that 6.5 is half of 13. Anything else? Half of 13, yes?
THIR.
Excellent. THIR and TEEN are each half of 13. Great. Did I see another hand up? Yes? 1. Very good. If we take 13 and break it down, the 1 and the 3 are each half of 13. Anything else? Yes?
I was going to say part of the whole, but
Part of a whole?
I don't know why I wouldn't say.
Okay. I don't know how I would depict that, but absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else? All right. As you start to think about it, we've got the third and the teen. You could divide it this way. You could divide it this way. You could divide this way. You could do 6.5. Perhaps you speak French and you do TRE and an IZE. Perhaps you have Roman numerals, so it's an X and a 1, and then a 1 and a 1. Perhaps you know binary numbers, which I do not. But there's, some sort of dots involved, and could cut that in half. So once you start out with your assumption that 6.5 or 6.5 are the only answers to this problem, but then you start looking at other answers to the problem, you can see how more and more ideas start to flow. Okay? So challenge your own assumptions, and when you feel as if the answer you've come up with is the only answer, try and think what